does not exist on planet Earth today. This planet, whether we like it or not, is dominated by the greatest system of injustice, the greatest system of violence that has ever existed on this planet. I believe that we as black people, the first people assigned to planet Earth, the mothers and fathers of everybody who has existed on this planet, that it is our cosmic assignment in the presence of injustice to see that justice prevails. It is not the responsibility of some singular individuals that somebody might say that's a leader or those several people are leaders. We all must see ourselves individually when we look in the mirror as being leaders in this great counter war against injustice. Not leaders who are doing their own thing, but leaders who want to participate in seeing that the beings on this planet can be everything that the Creator intended for us to be. It is our cosmic responsibility not just to attend lectures, but actually to see that a revolutionary change takes place on the planet. And I don't mean revolution in the sense that we thought of it in the 1960s, you know, where everybody was kind of tough. But we're creating a different kind of revolution that is based upon every single person that classifies him or herself as black having an in-depth understanding of what this war that is being waged against us is really all about. But before I go further, I want us to have a moment of silence in recognition of the passing of Dr. Amos Wilson, the famous black psychologist that I understand passed recently. He was such a major and important figure for us in all of his writings on black child development. And I came here today and found out that he had passed on. So can we just begin with a moment of silence in recognition for the major contribution that this black man made in the field of psychology.
Crucial to what we're doing is to enter into very practical developmental projects. One of the things that we are in the midst of doing right now is the development of a credit union. So we will be soliciting your subscriptions to that union so that we can begin to develop our own internal funds run by ourselves. A credit union is, of course, very different from a bank. And you can see what happens when you call yourself having a bank. As I've said, there's no such thing as a black bank. You see, anytime your money must be regulated, even though it's your money, anytime the federal government and other people tell you how to use it and under what circumstances and so forth, it's not yours. We are also developing a business loan fund. We are not going to just protest Koreans and protest other people. In tandem with protests or other kind of activities, we intend to finance our people into business. And we intend to train them to run these businesses and to manage these businesses. So look forward to our communications. And therefore, you get highly educated black economists and so forth who cannot help black people to resolve their economic problems. You cannot name me a top-notch today nationalistic economist, that comes with practical and real workable solutions to the problems we have with aliens taking over our communities. And yet they teach at Harvard and Yale and all these other stupid places. And they get Nobel Prizes for what? Solving other people's problems. An African-centered education is designed to get you to solve your own problems. You couldn't give, as I've told you before, all of your money to other alien groups if you're not alienated. You could not give 95 cents out of every dollar to other ethnic groups if you were not outside yourself. You could not subsidize the economic, social, psychological, educational well-being of Korean children while you starve your own if you were not out of your mind. If you didn't have at some level, self-hatred and self-negation, and on some level, though you love your children, there's still another element of negativity under there to continue to rob them of their economic inheritance and to rob them of your wealth, to buy what you want and beg for what you need and leave them begging and starving in the streets while you feed the other people's children. You gotta be out of your mind. You gotta be alienated.
These people who put this big lie out that they're the majority are really the minority. And the second big lie that something was wrong with our genetics, but in reality, white skin. This is not Francis Welsing's genetics that I cooked up in my apartment. Skin whiteness is defined by white people themselves, but when they were talking about a white mouse or a white bunny rabbit, not themselves, that this is a genetic deficiency state. It is albinism. It is genetic recessive as opposed to being genetically dominant.
White folk just talked this week about the great discovery now of this injection that they can have to turn them brown. Yeah, they've been researching on this for years. Melanin injections and other forms of injection. Now they're trying to get brown and we're trying to get white. Because they realize the value of this brown skin, this black skin. They're tearing up the ozone level, and now they're trying to get themselves in a position to protect themselves against those rays, and it is this black skin that does the best job of it, you know. Yeah.
Preventing white genetic annihilation, every single thing that they do. A white professor, female at the American University in the District of Columbia, said to me one time, Dr. Welsing, white people talk negatively about black people at all social gatherings. Not some social gatherings, all social gatherings. She said the common assumption is that every white person present agrees. Before she told me this, I said, yes, I know. And that's why when white people say, well, Dr. Welsing, what can I do? I say, tell black people what white people talk about when there's no black people around.
I do not apologize for writing these books where you have to go to the dictionary. Yeah. First there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? God creates the world in terms of what? Word. Let there be. Man creates reality through symbols. And one of the greatest symbolic systems is the system of language and words. Our children are born, as I've told you before, intellectually advanced in their development. The most intellectually advanced of all children on this earth. They are born doing things on their first and second day of life that it takes a white child a month or more to do. Yes. Yeah. They're doing things at, 6 and 7 weeks old. That's going to take a white child 15 weeks or more to get around to. You must know yourself. These children walk earlier, they talk earlier, they think earlier. Black people have a natural head start. I'm telling you, it's God-given, it's clear, it's irrefutable. He's there. But our children and we as a people slip behind white children and other people at the point where language becomes the chief instrument for dealing with the world. That's right. First of all, you must recognize that black-on-black violence flows from white-on-black violence. That is the root of black-on-black violence. The historical hundreds of years and unrelenting violence of whites against black folks. And black folks' reactionary response to that violence. That continues to this very moment and continues in so many different forms until it's hard to count. The obvious form of slavery, but that wasn't the end of it. Reconstruction still was a violent period. Jim Crowism, racial and job discrimination, insult to black and African histories, insult to our characters, the whole bit. Police brutality, legal lynchings in the court, questioning of our intelligence, questioning our natural beauty. All of this is one assault, what? After another. One assault, unrelenting, unforgiving against black people. And these people representing a tremendous power. And some of us have reached the point that we see them as invincible. Yet we are frustrated and angered and shamed and all of these other things by this relentless attack against us. And we then often get and try to deal with these psychological emotions through self-destructive behavior or the destruction of one another, because we have not yet made up our minds that we are going to destroy the people who have perpetrated this thing against us.
Racism, IQ, how much do we understand about what white supremacy is and exactly how it works? Because it is deadly. We can call it the deadly science. The deadly science. So what else is white supremacy doing other than trying to make absolutely certain that there is mass level of feminization of black men, because if they are effeminized, then the system doesn't have to worry about white genetic annihilation. And so they've got their whole game completely set up. The way you do it is attack the king off the field, off the board. Attack the black man. Subject him to unemployment. Does anybody know about that? If you subject the family to male unemployment, now there's a lot of people in this audience that say, I'm a single parent, female head of household, and my situation is functioning. I say it's a lot of ladies sat last night and said, I don't need no man. You see, rolling her eyes at me. It's good I knew she was a sister. My sister, my family. Do you understand? I don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Wells. I don't need. That's what the system has taught us to say.
That alienation began in slavery. To alienate a people means to alienate their wealth, to put them in a position where their wealth cannot be used in their own interest, to put them in a position where the product of their labor goes to other people. What did I say about MC Hammer? Using your own cultural product to enrich what? Other folk. Black music selling 60% of the music in the world, outselling people's national music. You understand? In their own countries, they're buying more black music than they buy their own native music. Billions of dollars. And yet black people only get a fraction of that wealth. And then using your own cultural product to make you buy cassettes and all the other kind of things to rob you. You've got to be alienated in order for that to happen. You've got to be alienated for people to insult you, don't want to live with you, don't want your children in school with you, to have a Florio or these other people going to jerk your quality education money away from you soon. Oh yeah, getting ready to jerk it back. Yeah, they're working on you. They hid it behind higher taxes. It was hidden behind one thing. We are not going to invest in those Negroes. That's what it's about. And forgetting that black folk pay taxes and pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes than other folk. You see? But what does it mean then? That's what alienation means, to be separated from yourself and have your own product used against you. Which says what? That this degree is not designed for us to take control of our economic system. No, it's not, because the assumption is, both by student, black student, and by teacher, that black students are being prepared to work for white folk, work in white companies, strive to move up in white systems. The education assumes that whites will continue to be in control of the economic system, and therefore they are educated on the assumption that they're going in to get a job from someone else, and they're not educated in how to what? Create jobs for themselves and to create their own economic and political structures. Recognize that the major function of a family is to represent the society. I often talk about the fact that the family is a social agent of the society. The chief role of the family being to produce the kinds of people that the society needs to maintain itself. And you have to keep that in mind. And even though families might think of themselves as being independent and being a unit unto themselves, they have been socialized in their very structures, in their very role relationships one to the other, in their very moral values and orientations, in their very occupational roles to ultimately create for the society the kinds of personalities that that society needs in its children to continue itself. In fact, this works best when the family is unconscious of its role as a social agent, when it really thinks that it is operating independently of the social system. It's most efficient at that point.
You see, but people will say, Dr. Welsing, why are you always talking about racism? Dr. Welsing, am I supposed to tell my child about racism? I don't want to discourage my child. Do you all understand? If we don't understand what is coming at us, they have a right to say we don't have any intelligence. Because we're fumbling around. It's just like if you didn't know what the football was about and you were on the football field. Somebody who knows the game would say, what's that idiot doing? They simply don't know the rules. They don't understand how the game is played. They are not, therefore, doing the correct thing in order to score. We are being programmed to what? Hate one another. None of us would be here were it not for a contribution from father and contribution from mother. But the social dynamic can make us hate each other. Hate ourselves and hate each other until we have thoroughly gone into total genocide.
Now you must recognize then that if the family is the social agent of the society, if its major role is to create the kinds of personalities society needs to exist, then what must be the role of the black family in a racist society? In a society that needs to maintain its dominance over black people. And to make that dominance, though, appear to be self-perpetuating on the part of black people. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, if this society needs then for our children and our people to be maladaptive, then it must in some way seduce the black family to produce what? Maladaptive children. And of course then it'll throw on you a psychology that says sickness begins in the family. You see, and the whole society that creates and shapes the family is what? Is left off the hook. And you'll see centric psychology centers around the family. And everybody, as soon as you are sick in the head, starts talking about what? Your family relationships. How did you relate to your mama? How did you relate to your daddy? You see? Well, how did your mom and daddy relate to the society that they were in? How did their relationship to the society itself reflect in their relationship to what? To you. So in what way were they conduits from the society to you? In what way then did their behavior in relationship to you that drove you crazy represent a crazy society or a maladaptive society itself? But of course, you see, since the major function of the Eurocentric psychological system is to stand in front of the Eurocentric system itself, to justify European domination of African people, it is going to start then at the family, so that you won't look at the whole system itself, so you won't get involved in revolutionary politics, so that ultimately you'll get caught up in self-blame and in blaming mom and daddy for everything, and then coming to blame your husband and your wife, and therefore maintaining the black family in disorganization and maintaining a negative relationship between black males and females, maintaining the inability of the black family to achieve an African identity so that it can produce African children who ultimately can overthrow European power. You see?
First, we're going to engage in the exercises of black mental health and black self-respect. I call it building a pyramid. The base of the pyramid has to be our mastering self-respect. How do we do that? Neely Fuller, in his textbook for victims of racism, laid out a number of things, and I added some things to it. Stop name-calling one another. Stop gossiping about one another. Gossiping. Oh, I'm about to gossip. Put the telephone down. Then how I feel about myself will be reflected in how I relate to another black person. So we are going to engage. See, we do exercises to keep our muscles in shape. Now we're doing exercises to get our brains in shape, in our self-image, in our self-concept, so we can be effective soldiers, because
criminal history. They have a criminal nation. The nation is built on criminality and murder and exploitation. It is a part of their collective psyche. The United States is a mafia government. No one has done more damage and degradation and murder, rape, and robbery than Europeans. Yes. Therefore, in order to escape confrontation with their true criminal nature, they must accuse others of being criminals. What we call protection. They must become obsessed with the criminality of other people. And black folk become those other people, you see. But as Clinton Cox say, you called the Indians savages so you could behave toward them what? savagely.
So we have to reflect on this, reflect on this. Well, Dr. Wilson, what do you suggest that we do? I suggest that we understand we are at war. A war is being waged against us. We have to turn ourselves into very effective soldiers for justice. Not people who are going to waste their energy hating white people. It's not necessary. You don't sit down and play chess and hate. I hate my opponent. I hate. Go on the football field. Imagine a football player. I hate the opponent. No. You go in that squad room and study the opponent's plays. You let yourself reflect when they're good so you know what your opposition is. So hate is out. Stop snitching on one another. Informing to the racists for reasons of personal gain. Stop being discourteous to each other. Stop being disrespectful to each other. Stop cursing one another. If we have time, we'll go into our favorite curse, motherfucker. We'll see why we use that. Stop being discourteous. Stop being disrespectful. Stop stealing from one another. Stop robbing one another. Stop fighting one another. Stop killing one another. Now, what if black people, what if we were walking around and say, you do know the code, don't you? Are you in code? See, if we have to dance, can you do the code? Stop throwing down trash where black people live, work, and play. This is really important. Really important. See, trash is all around us. We are being conditioned to think of ourselves as trash. What do you do with trash? You compact it and then send it to the incinerator. Is that correct? Do you all understand? Get in code. Stop fighting one another. Stop killing one another. Stop making believe that white supremacy does not exist.
What do we mean by curriculum? How does one arrive at a curriculum? You see, is it enough to say our children don't read well and they're not doing math well, and then what programs can we institute to get them to read well and do math well? I often ask, read for what? Read to what end? Do math to what end? I've indicated that we have people who read very well, black people who read very well. We have people who do math very well. And yet, in people like Colin Powell, they use their good reading to attack black nations. Yet, people, unfortunately, like Ron McNair, who uses mathematical skills to get a PhD in physics, also uses it to arm space as a part of the U.S. space mission so that African nations can be intimidated by U.S. space stations, and so that African nations are literally defenseless against U.S. arms from space. So is it enough to get the children to read well, to do math well? We must move then beyond the mere training of skills. Those skills must be trained within an African-centered context for African-centered ends. And same thing happens in education as well, which is one of the reasons why it has taken us these decades to arrive at an African-centered education, to now be derailed by multicultural education again, to be derailed by community control and that issue. And I said, but we can't afford to take another 20 years or more to find out that we made an educational mistake again, you see. And a good deal of that was due to the fact that we never stopped to define what does education mean to us? What do we as black people plan to get from education? Not skills to be sold to white folk, us. Not to make ourselves commodities, you see. Since when did we then define education in terms of ourselves? But yet we have conferences on the education of our children. But this is one thing an African-centered education does. It gives you an overriding reason, other than merely qualifying for jobs, for being educated. That's why it also gives you a mental frame for memory and remembering. You see, that's why an African-centered education is ultimately the development of intelligence. You see, because it is a motivational system. It gives you a very solid reason for what you're doing. It gives you a frame within which to place information and how that information is to be used. It gives you a means of self-defense. When you look at that nonsense, you can laugh at it and say, I'm not going to be sucked in by this crap. It helps you keep your money in your pocket. It helps increase your savings. And when you increase your savings, you have more to invest in black businesses and economic development. You see? And therefore, learning takes on a whole new meaning and adds a whole new dimension to intelligence and thinking. And most of all, it brings on brand new powers. It permits the ultimate overthrow of those who rule us. That's why a psychology of African Americans and the psychology of oppression begins with the fact that the craziness of black people is an economic necessity. Yeah. See, before you go into these issues, and that means people who aren't able to get along with each other too, you see. And you begin to get an idea then of what an African-centered education is once you start looking at these problems, don't you? Huh? You're not going to get that in any white folk school and learn how to deal with this issue of giving your money away to other people in white folk school. It's designed. One of the major reasons black people are educated is to increase their consumption. The ability to love and how to love is taught. In this system, we are taught that it's something that occurs accidentally and spontaneously. That is not true. Even romantic love, with all of its shivers up and down your spine, and all of this business about you can't eat and you can't sleep and, you know, you toss and turn all night and all that kind of stuff. All of that's taught. You've been listening to the music all the time, haven't you? It's told you how you should feel when you're in love. You know, right? Isn't that what it says? Oh, I think about him all the time. I can't sleep. Oh, you in love. Not necessarily. You may be addicted. Pun unintended.
Stop making black children think that as children, they can be adequate mothers and fathers. This is very important. Everybody ought to clap, because this is not a put down of somebody who had children when they were a teenager. You weren't doing your own thing. White supremacy said, I can make you as a child want to have sex. How can I do it? Take the father out of the home and exhaust the mother. So there's no emotional support coming no matter what she wants to do. So children who are longing for lap time and can't get it will find somebody under the porch who's also longing for lap time. I tell the children, any child that is thinking about sexual intercourse is simply saying, I want my mama. So we have to know, this is game plan number 20651AK. What's our response? Now hold on to your chair, because you're not going to like what I'm going to say. This is war. This is not what you like best, what you want me to say. I'm saying what I think I understand. Under the conditions of white supremacy, all people who are trying to make soldiers in order to war against white supremacy and produce justice so we can have peace on the planet. No black lady have children before 30. I know she's crazy. Black men 35. Do you all hear me? And so we have to help the children understand it's problems. We're going to take responsibility as the older people, but we want you to understand. Because as a child, you cannot take care of a child for 25 years. It takes 25 years to stand a soldier on his or her feet so they can deal with the stress of war. Do you all understand me? We should say by the year 2000, we're not going to have any black children having children. We are all going to be in the business of producing people who will ensure that justice is brought to the planet. That's why it's important to talk about black genetic inferiority, because they keep saying, look at them, look at them, look at them, look at them. Now, they made us this way. But then they say, look at them, because they want to go into Act 3. So we have to take the position we're not about to be. We love ourselves too much. We're going to learn to respect ourselves. And also, we understand our mission. And it's not a dream.
One does not gain spiritual clarity or deep spiritual understanding without self-knowledge. As a matter of fact, the root to healthy spirituality is through self-knowledge. But one, to me, of the hallmarks of spirituality is enlightenment and clarity. and the ability to discern reality and to look through a good deal of chicanery. You see? And to me, to be taken again and again and again and to be misused in the name of religion means that one needs to re-examine what that religion and spirituality is about. This too often is sold to African American people purely as a feeling, you see, and some kind of body feeling, and it's measured. And you know, I've told you before that you can't equate good feelings and even unusual feelings with necessarily being possessed by God. You can confuse those two things. In fact, the devil will trick you by representing himself as what? God. You see. And I've also mentioned to you before here to remember one thing, that Africans did not come to this country as Christians. Now that hurts a lot of people's feelings. But you must understand that Africans did not come to this country as Christians. It's very important to understand that. Where did Africans learn, particularly African Americans, this Christianity from? Even if you said you found it, the kind you learned is still not what you found it. Yeah. Where did you learn it from? Who taught it to you? And for what reason did they teach it to you? And in this sense, then, blacks have been made to think to a good extent that by escaping their African self and trying to deny their color and trying to escape African culture and so forth, we have opened ourselves up to being implanted with a white demon. And it is that white demon in us that manipulates our bodies and manipulates our minds. It is one of the reasons why we lose self-control. We say things that we know we shouldn't be saying, but we can't what? Help ourselves. We eat things that we know we shouldn't be what? Eating, but the appetite is out of control, you see. And if you look at what you say, if you look at what you eat, if you look at what you desire, you will see all those things that you eat, that you desire, that you want, are things that maintain and enrich white folk. It means then that the demon that's implanted in the place of the real African self is a demon that works for its creator. You see, and it works to maintain its creator in a place of domination. That is why the process of reclaiming our African selves and coming back to ourselves is a process of exorcising devils. And that is the reason why a reclamation of ourselves is a reclamation of health, a reclamation of self-control, and a reclamation of love, and a reclamation of positive relations between black men and black women, and between ourselves and the world. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.